Research methods in psychology are the systematic scientific procedures psychologists use to study human behavior, thoughts, emotions, and mental processes. These methods allow researchers to collect data in an objective, reliable, and valid manner so findings are accurate and trustworthy. For psychology students, understanding research methods is essential because they explain how psychological theories, hypotheses, and evidence-based conclusions are developed, tested, and refined. Most psychological research methods fall into two broad approaches: qualitative research, which focuses on in-depth understanding, meaning, and subjective experiences, and quantitative research, which focuses on numerical data, measurement, statistical analysis, and patterns across groups of individuals. 1. Experimental method. The experimental method is used to find cause and effect. This means the researcher wants to know if one thing causes a change in another thing. In an experiment, the researcher changes one factor on purpose. This factor is called the independent variable, which simply means the thing the researcher controls or changes. The researcher then measures what happens as a result. This result is called the dependent variable, which means the outcome that changes because of what the researcher did. Other conditions are kept the same so they do not affect the results. One example is Little Albert experiment, John B. Watson and Rosalie Rayner. 1920, researchers studied whether fear can be conditioned. They paired a white rat with a loud noise for a baby, Albert, causing him to become afraid of the rat. Independent variable, presence of the loud noise. Dependent variable, fear response in Albert. This is an experiment because the researchers manipulated a factor to see its effect on behavior. 2. Correlational method. The correlational method is used to see whether two things are related to each other. It does not show cause and effect. The researcher does not change anything. Instead, they measure two things as they already exist and check whether they increase or decrease together. The relationship can be positive, both increase together; negative, one increases while the other decreases, or no relationship at all. A psychologist measures hours of daily screen use and levels of sleep problems in adults. They do not tell people how much screen time to have. They only record what already happens. If people with more screen time also report more sleep problems, the two are related. This is correlational research because nothing is controlled or changed, and no cause is proven. 3. Case study method. A case study is an in-depth examination of a single person, group, or situation to understand complex psychological phenomena. The researcher gathers detailed data through interviews, observations, medical and psychological records, and personal history. The focus is on exploring unique or rare behaviors that cannot be generalized to large populations. Example: a psychologist conducts a case study on a patient diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. Over several months, the psychologist documents change in identity states, memory gaps, emotional regulation, and trauma history using therapy notes and behavioral observation. Another example: Phineas Gage survived severe damage to his frontal lobes, leading to major personality and behavioral changes. Psychologists linked his injury to impairments in impulse control, decision-making, and social behavior. This case provided key evidence for the brain-behavior relationship and the role of the frontal lobe in personality. 4. Observational method. The observational method is a systematic study of behavior in natural settings without interference. The researcher records behaviors as they occur naturally, without giving instructions, manipulating variables, or influencing participants. A psychologist observes how children in a classroom respond to peer conflict during group activities. They record interactions like sharing, arguing, and problem-solving without intervening. This is observational research because behavior is recorded in a real-life setting, providing authentic insights into social development. Jane Goodall studied chimpanzees in Gom Stream National Park, observing natural behavior, social interactions, and tool use without interference. Her work provided insights into primate communication, problem-solving, and social hierarchy, demonstrating the importance of naturalistic observation in behavioral psychology. 5. Survey method. The survey method is a quantitative research technique used to systematically collect data about attitudes, behaviors, beliefs, or experiences from a sample of participants using structured questions. Researchers design standardized questionnaires or structured surveys with closed-ended or scaled items, like Likert scales. Responses are then quantified and analyzed statistically to identify patterns, trends, or correlations in a population. A psychologist investigates the prevalence of social anxiety among high school students. participants complete a standardized social anxiety questionnaire, rating statements like "I feel nervous speaking in class" on a scale from 1 to 5. The researcher calculates mean scores, compares results across grades, and identifies patterns of anxiety. The National Comorbidity Survey, NCS, assessed the prevalence and co-occurrence of mental disorders in the U.S. population using structured questionnaires. Researchers analyzed patterns of anxiety, depression, and substance use, helping psychologists understand risk factors, correlations, and population mental health trends. 6. Interview method. The interview method is a qualitative research method used to collect in-depth psychological data about a person's experiences, emotions, thoughts, and perceptions through direct verbal interaction. It is commonly used in clinical psychology, counseling, and trauma research. Researchers conduct structured interviews, fixed questions, semi-structured interviews, guided but flexible questions, or unstructured interviews, open conversation. Participants give detailed verbal responses, which are audio recorded, transcribed, coded, and analyzed using thematic analysis to identify psychological patterns, meanings, and coping processes. Example: a psychologist explores coping strategies in patients recovering from psychological trauma. Participants are asked open-ended questions such as, "How did you manage anxiety after the event?" The responses are analyzed to identify themes like emotion regulation, social support, avoidance, or mindfulness. Another example: Holocaust survivor interviews. United States Holocaust Memorial Museum involved psychologists interviewing survivors to study trauma, memory, resilience, and post-traumatic stress. This is an interview method because data was collected through personal verbal narratives to understand deep psychological experiences. 7. Longitudinal method. The longitudinal method is a developmental research design in which the same participants are studied repeatedly over a long period of time to examine psychological change, development, and long-term effects. Researchers measure the same dependent variables at multiple time points while observing how independent variables and life experiences influence change. This method is useful for studying developmental trends, risk factors, and causal pathways across the lifespan. Example: a psychologist studies how adolescent sleep patterns affect depressive symptoms in adulthood. Sleep duration and quality are measured at ages 13, 16, 19, and 22, along with mental health assessments. Here, sleep patterns are the independent variable and depressive symptoms are the dependent variable. This is longitudinal because the same individuals are followed over time. Another example: the Dunedin Multidisciplinary Health and Development Study followed over 1,000 individuals from birth into adulthood, measuring mental health, personality traits, and behavior. This is longitudinal research because it examines developmental and psychological changes across decades in the same participants. 8. Cross-Sectional Method. The cross-sectional method is a comparative research design that examines different groups of people at a single point in time to identify differences in psychological functioning. Researchers select participants from different age groups or populations and measure the dependent variables simultaneously. This method is efficient for identifying age-related or group differences, but it cannot explain developmental change or cause and effect relationships. Example: a psychologist studies working memory capacity by testing children, 8 to 10 years, young adults, 20 to 25 years, and older adults, 60 to 65 years, using a digit span task. Here, age group is the independent variable and working memory performance is the dependent variable. This is cross-sectional because different groups are compared at the same time, not followed over years.